No,
no, you're good. And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That are actually Love Lives Rock Show. Riding through the unknown.
That's
I'm
all right.
sorry, guys. I'm a little, in full transparency, I'm still in a little fan mode here. So I'll calm down and collect myself. But I am so blessed and so excited to bring on the show the one, the only Journey to Truth podcast duo, Tyler Kiwala and Aaron Kuhn. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you for having us. And
Glad to
and
be
that was
here.
that was an amazing intro, by the way. It was awesome. And you
That
kicked
was
it off.
an amazing intro.
You kicked it off with Cahokia. I saw that's pretty cool.
And in full transparency, when I was talking to my cousin that did that, I was like, man, I want to talk about Cahokia. I have nobody yet, but he came up with that, and I was like, oh, that is so cool. And then when you guys said you're going to come on, I was like, oh, they are so going to love that part.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Cahokia right there at the beginning. Yeah, that was an epic intro.
Yeah.
So what guys got you started into Journey to Truth?
Tyler,
you want to go first?
The awakening, my personal awakening, obviously led me to Aaron at a conference in Colorado, and that's where we both realized that we were from the same town, St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah. And it wasn't very long after that we met up for lunch when Aaron was back through town because he was living in Kansas at the time. And we had some lunch, and Aaron had the idea for a podcast, and I was like, why not? Sure. I mean, I had no expectations, didn't think it would amount to anything. It was just like more for fun, because we wanted to do something. And I mean, in a nutshell, like there's a lot more to it, but in a nutshell, that's how it happened. And then we just hit the ground running, and it was effortless. Like we didn't have to force it. The universe just kind of took the wheel, and it became this well-oiled machine that, when you're doing something right, whenever it just kind of falls into your lap, and it just like, we were just like steering it, right? But it was already built somehow. Like the universe had it ready for us. It was weird. And, it turned into so much more now. We're doing conferences, which we have one coming up in May, and the documentaries, the Cahokia Mounds documentary that you watched. We're doing webinars now. We just built a brand new website. We're kind of just taking that step up and seeing what happens. So we're, Aaron, you can expand on that if you'd like. But
yeah, so we met at, Tyler said, the conference in Colorado. It was in 2018. It was called Dimensions of Disclosure. And the whole reason I went to, it was kind of like the sequel to the conference the year before called Eclipse of Disclosure in 2017, which was in the Mount Shasta area. And it was kind of like Corey Good's like a team or whatever at the time kind of like put it on. And so he was like kind of like the main speaker, and there was like Laura Eisenhower was a speaker at that, and A.R. Isley, Michael Sala, Clifford Mahooty, a bunch of amazing speakers. And that was my first conference ever, was that one in 2017. And it totally changed my life. And I was just like, I have to, if they're going to keep doing these, I have to go every year, you know? And I thought it would just be in the same spot though. And they moved it to Loveland, Colorado the next year and called it Dimensions of Disclosure. So because there was no more Eclipse, so they had to change the name. And Tyler was there with his dad, and I went on a hike with them. They were like, "Hey, we're going on a hike. You want to go?" I was like, "Sure." Just on the property of the ranch. It was at like this ranch, and found out we all lived in St. Louis. Total synchronicity, you know. I was like, "What? No way!" So, yeah, like Tyler said, I was actually living in Kansas at the time. Shortly after that, though, I moved back to St. Louis. So yeah, we started the podcast when I just had the idea to do an audio. I just had like an audio podcast. That's what I had in my head. And I was just thinking like, you know, iTunes podcast or whatever, like audio only, whatever. But I didn't know how to set all that up at the time. I looked into it and it was really confusing. I didn't know. So I'm like, screw it, let's just make a YouTube channel. So that's why it started on YouTube. And then eventually we figured out how to do the audio podcast a little bit later on. But yeah, it was just through people I had met, through some of the speakers and different people that Tyler and I had both met at conferences that we had been to at that point. We just messaged them like, hey, like we just decided to do it once a week. We're like, we'll message people that ask to be a guest, and we'll try to have on as many people as we can. But we weren't expecting like every week to get somebody, but that's pretty much what it ended up being. And like Tyler said, it was like the universe just supported us since day one, and it just was very slowly building at first. But then once we hit about the year mark is when it really, I felt like, started to really take off, and like somehow the word was like really getting out there about us, and people were, next thing you know, like over half the time people are messaging us to be on the show rather than us having to seek out people, you know, which is mind blowing to think that would ever happen. And next thing you know, then we're doing our own conferences. Like Tyler and I started getting invited to conferences to do like something, you know. We did like we call it an Experiencers Lounge at a conference in late 2020 or summer of 2020, and then we did that at like a few other conferences. We got invited to do that, and then we started putting on our own conferences. We did the first one in May of 2022, called the Secret Space Conference, and was Secret Space Program themed. And that was such a huge hit that, you know, people were like, you guys got to do this, you know, next year. And then so we did another one last year. Now we're doing our third one here in a couple months. And now we're doing documentaries and webinars and all kinds of stuff. And it's pretty mind blowing to think that we would ever be doing all of this stuff. Like just like starting the podcast as a thing for fun, just as like an outlet to like get our thoughts out and have cool people on, you know. We never in a million years thought we'd be here 5 years later, but here we are, and the universe is still supporting it. And, you know, I think we're on our mission. And I'm writing a book right now. Tyler, I know you're in the process of writing a book that you'll check out at some point. And yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff. So it's a lot of fun, and it's the biggest blessing ever.
How do you guys find the time?
Well,
it's a good question.
It's a good question.
That's a really good question.
We, you know, especially since we started doing the webinars, the researching for the webinars is like a full-time job, especially the extent that we cover the topics. You know, we do like the craziest deep dives, and we get, you know, we get in over our heads sometimes, but it's so much fun and people love it. And, you know, it's become kind of what the Patreon is surrounded by, or the you know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, time travel. I just saw a comment. At the time, it's basically like we had to quit. I quit my full-time job in 2019, I think.
2020.
2020, yeah, 2020. July 17th of 2020, actually.
The exact day.
Yeah. So I quit, and it was amazing what happened, all the opportunities that showed up. It was a very scary leap of faith for me, but I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing commercial construction, union construction anymore. It's just as corrupt as the government. I mean, it's horrible in a lot of ways, but so that freed up a lot of time for me. And we basically, at first, we really didn't need that much time. We were just recording one episode a week. But now, whenever we're now that it's become full time, you just had to commit. We had to go all in. It's either you half-ass it or you go all in, and we went all in, and that's what you see now. And we're constantly working behind the scenes, and it's kind of nice creating our own hours, though, because if I want to work at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night and just sit at my computer and do stuff, I can, or I can do it any time of day. But it's very nice being able to create your own schedule. So I just you just make it work. But like I said, whenever you're doing the right thing, it's kind of effortless, and it just you find a way, and it's a lot of fun.
And I'm curious because, one, I'm curious what got you to do the documentary on Cahokia and bring to light all of that. But also, who is like the main, or are you guys equal on going, hey, we should deep dive and do a show about this topic, or hey, did you hear about this topic?
I'd say that part's equal.
It's pretty equal. We're pretty much interested in the same stuff.
I mean, that's what. So people ask us, like, are you guys actually friends, or are you just partners? And we text every single day. Like,
no, we're friends.
Like stupid memes, jokes, and everything, but also sending each other interviews and constantly working together. And I think that's what makes it work. It's not just like something where like you're forced to go to work and you got to do this and they're phoning it in. It's actually. It's still a passion project.
Yeah, there's 0% of any like, oh, I'm just doing this because this is now my job, or I'm not actually interested in this topic, but Tyler is, so I'm going to go. No, there's like none of that. It's literally everything you see us talk about or see us present, and generally people we have on the show, everything they're talking, like it's stuff we're actually fully interested in and fully believe in. And that's why we're doing it. We're only doing it because we actually fully believe in this stuff and are fully interested, and we want to help this awakening that's going on, help get this stuff out there. And we're not doing it for the money. We're not doing it for popularity or any other reason that we get accused of, just like everyone else, who you get to a certain level and a lot of people will throw those, oh, you're just, but no, like since day one, we've only been doing this because we're passionate about all of this stuff. And
to be honest, I think it shows.
Find the truth and get the truth out.
Yeah, I think it shows, and that's why you guys are as popular as you are, is because you're authentic. And it's not oh yeah, we're doing this because it's the popular topic of the day. So we're going to cover that to keep with everybody else's.
Actually, we don't cover the popular topics. If you really pay attention, like if there's a lot of stuff that's trending and people are into, and then we'll be throwing out an episode about like healing or spirituality, and it's just like flying under the radar, getting like not so many views because people want to be wild and enamored, and they want to like updates about all the current events, which we could focus on that. But honestly, like how is that serving people? Yeah, it's like instant gratification, but we want something. We're trying to put out content that you can go back and watch 5 years later, and it's still going to be just as valuable as today. So that's kind of the goal. Like that's my mindset whenever we put out new episodes and content. I want it to stand the test of time. And when we do the current event episodes, they'll get all the traction. They'll get more traction out of the gate, but that's it. No one's going back and watching those again. Why would you go back and watch the live when you're talking to the chat and everything? I want somebody to be able to tune in and the interview starts and they're getting the information and they don't have to sit through us engaging with the chat and all that stuff that can be very annoying when you're on the path just looking for information. So that's my goal. I went like, and I always use like Project Camelot or Carrie Cassidy like as a model, because when I go back and watch her interviews, you hit play, there's the intro, and then it starts. Like she's not talking to the audience and joking around, this and that. I'm like, it's just boom, boom, you're getting the information. So that's kind of what we try to do. And
interviews and videos from that she's done from like 18 years ago, like 2006, 2007, are you find them for the first time today, and it's relevant to today and to right now, and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing. Whereas so much content, you can't say that about it does get very dated, or it's like, okay, this is not really relevant anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was doing a Q&A with a friend the other day, and the big question that we were asking ourselves was, why do we do this? And my answer was just like you said. I want an episode to where someone can 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, the seeds planted today, but later go, wait a minute, I remember watching something about this. Now I'm really interested in this.
Right.
What was that? Go back and watch it. And I'm like, that to me is the goal. Not having everything up front is, like you're saying, the long term.
And what's interesting is we kind of proved that to ourselves already with our own content, because when we're doing our webinars, we're referencing our own episodes from 4 and 5 years ago. And I'm watching them again. I'm like, God, this is like a gem. Like, we need to re-upload this episode again. But it's true. So it's amazing that I didn't even realize the magnitude of what we were putting out back then until like you go back and watch it now. Like, wow. And not every episode's the same, but in large, that's what we try to do. And we never did answer your question about the documentary. So why did we have the idea to make the Cahokia Mountains documentary? That was your idea more, I remember. And that was just something, because that site always intrigued me. And I don't know, I didn't even know why at the time that it was so significant. Like, we learned so much while we were researching and interviewing people and everything. But I just felt, I don't even know why, I just felt compelled to do it. It just sounded like a good idea. It was one of those ideas that just kind of came out of the ether, And we started filming it in, I think, late 2019. I started, that's when we started filming it. And then COVID hit.
And then COVID hit and derailed it a little bit.
Derailed it for sure, because not only like I was thinking, well, nobody's going to be interested in mounds right now. Like, the whole
when the election was all the rage of that year, and that's all anyone cared, seemed to want to talk about. And it just seemed like no one's going to care about this at that point in time. So, and COVID hit. So it kind of like derailed it for a few years.
And then I didn't care either anymore. Like, I wasn't interested so much. I was interested
we cared about the mounds. We cared about it, but not enough to like keep going.
It wasn't as important to me. Yeah.
Chugging along with it. Right.
But that was a blessing in disguise, because so much information, so many new people. I mean, the documentary would not have been what you saw if we had put it out in 2020.
Oh, nowhere near. Yeah. So we're actually it was a blessing in disguise. That we didn't know until years later when we did continue, and we're like, oh my gosh, now we have all this more amazing stuff to put in, and it's going to be way better than ever. Well, we didn't even know, like originally we kind of just had the idea to make a short, 20-minute video, maybe like a short, like mini documentary, basically. Like, I think that's, if I remember correctly, what we had in our heads. And then it kind of just, we're like, we got so much material. We're like, okay, this is going to actually be way longer than this. We had our friend Jace. We flew him out from Sedona because he was getting like amazing drone footage, and it was cheaper for us to fly him to St. Louis and back to Sedona than it was to pay for drone footage online of the mountains, which is crazy. It's how
cheaper by thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that and got some amazing, beautiful drone footage.
Some of the best drone footage that I've seen of the mounds, honestly.
Yeah. And so, like, as we were interviewing people, we were learning so much, and then as we were doing our own research, we kept learning more and more, and we would, you know, and then so we kind of picked up again in 2023, just last year, and we got Brad Olson, we got some other people, Margie K,
John
we got
Ford.
their info, and it really, we're like, wow, this is really turning into something special that we were just so proud of, and we were so excited to put out to the world. So thank you so much for
and,
you know.
And I feel like there's a lot that, you know, we could do that, eventually do a part 2, a follow-up. I think there's a lot that that's still surfacing. I was just there like last week, and the museum, the visitor center is still closed down, under construction, but zero. When I say zero, I know what evidence of construction looks like and evidence of a job site looks like.
Yeah.
Zero evidence of any
I didn't see any
rehab or anything to this day, but it's still closed for under construction.
It's been closed for a while now too, right?
I'm telling you, like, I have these, I look at it, I'm like, what are they doing? I'm like, are they like tying this into the underground tunnel network, and they're just doing, they have it closed so they can, you know, work, do construction like that.
Who knows?
You know, is there a giant skeleton in there that they're working on? And I have no idea, but
who knows, man? Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for it to be closed the way that it's closed. I don't get it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I was there, the 3 to 5 times that I was there as a teenager, it's like you walk it and you can feel like this is literally untouched. It's like you can feel the energy, like they're here, but they're not here.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know of many other places that I've been to that have that same energy, but at the same time, I always felt like there was something more. And then it was like when I watched your documentary, and then I'm not sure if it was your documentary or another one that I watched shortly after, but they were saying like the mounds were pyramids.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that explains the energy, because
the energy there is
totally
is so potent that when I go and I leave, I'm starving. I don't know what it does, but when I leave, I can't get food fast enough. Thank God there's this taco truck down the street that's amazing that I hit every time I go. But it's last time I went, I'm like, I'm not doing that again, because I don't know what happens energetically. I don't know what it does. It's using up my energy or something, but I leave early because my stomach's growling. Like, I need food. I get lightheaded. The energy is so like 5D, I guess you could say. So this time I ate a huge meal before I went, and I was able to stay a lot longer and be grounded in that energy and not have the effects. So I can attest there is something energetically going on on that site.
Do you think it could be the pyramids? Like, could the pyramids have the capstone, and so they are working?
Well, mounds, to me, in the research I've done, they're a type of pyramid. It just doesn't go all the way up to a point. Or there's theories that maybe they used to have that on top and it got removed, you know. But even just it being the flat mound, it's still harnessing energy. That shape alone is still a type of pyramid, and they're on ley lines. I mean, they're aligned with the stars.
Yeah.
So Cahokia from above, if you look at all the mounds, they're laid out in exactly the formation of the constellation Orion. It's identical. Like put a picture of Orion and then a picture of Cahokia from above. It's Orion. So, you know, one, they had that knowledge they were able to do that with the mounds, and you can only see it from high above the Earth. So do the math there, right? They're flying above the Earth. Like, they had advanced knowledge of the stars. You know, there was an advanced civilization that built all that a long time ago, long time before we're told, you know, we're talking back to Atlantis, Lemurian times. And the Birdman, so like the Birdman tablet that was found there, and there's a legend of that. but they try to tell you, like the mainstream narrative, they try to tell you, it's their myth that, you know, they're celebrating the bird people as if it's, you know, they always try to tell you it's just a myth and that's just what they believe, but there's nothing to it. Well, it's like, no, they were actually people, they were interacting with these bird-like ETs a long time ago. And, you know, that turned into, you know, all the Native Americans tribes, you know, it's the same story. It's like they try to tell you their myths and legends, but it's actually, they were actually interacting with these beings. And that's why they drew them. That's why they carved them in stone. That's why they carved the Birdman tablet with the bird being. That's why they dressed up like them and did their rituals, because they were honoring those beings and they learned all these things from them. And so yeah, there's you know, Monk's Mound there, the huge one. It's called Monk's Mound. The base of it's bigger than the base of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. It shows you how big it is. And there's a 3-foot thick compacted granite under and the base of it that John Ford in their documentary is saying that the dirt on top of it weighs about as much as that granite weighs. And the closest you can quarry that granite is 90 miles away from that site. So they were able to do all that, you know, and they try to tell you they're just like digging dirt and millions of buckets of dirt, and, you know, and who knows, you know, the granite, like how long it would have taken them and how much effort. If, you know, it's like, to me, it's very obvious there was an advanced civilization that created all of that. And there's been supposedly things found inside of Monk's Mound, supposedly giant bones, supposedly some like ET technology. And people have remote viewed it, like Margie K has remote viewed it, others have remote viewed and seen lots of things inside of there that aren't supposed to exist. And yeah, so we, you know, as you dig into that site, you start more and more realizing the mainstream narrative is just a cover, because they don't want anyone looking into this stuff. They don't want anyone realizing there's way more going on in our reality than we've been told. You know, they want you to just believe what they tell you, move along, nothing to see here. But, you know, Cahokia is kind of a perfect little example of like anything you start digging into, you start getting into the truth, and it's, you can see like the stuff beneath the surface of what they tell you, and then you see, like, you start seeing the truth, you know. And it's like, well, now just use that, what we did with Cahokia, go to any other area, any other topic basically in the world, and it's the same thing. You start digging into it, and you got the mainstream narrative. It's got some truth in it, but it's mostly lies, right? It's mostly not. And then you start digging under that, and you start seeing the truth, and it starts making sense of why they tell you what they tell you, as opposed to what's the reality, because they don't want us knowing that there's more beings than just humans in the universe. And it's, you know, they'll tell you, oh yeah, they are, but they're, you know, they're so far away and we'll never interact with them, blah, blah, blah. They've never been here. There's no evidence, and there's like mountains of evidence, you know, and they're still here, and they've been here the whole time. We've been so yeah, it's just, to me, it's like I'm really proud of the documentary, because it's like, I really feel like if we can show that documentary, you know, somebody that isn't really into this stuff.
Oh no, they don't. Dude.
Yeah.
We reached, like, when we were on YouTube, it was in the algorithm when people typed in Cahokia Mounds, and all the normies, we were getting like hate comments, because people were rejecting it. Yeah.
The people
like
that aren't open are like that. Right?
It'll plant the seeds, but people like it's amazing the people that were rejecting it and like, this is blasphemy, this is ridiculous.
It triggers their programming.
Right.
Yeah. And
they think that they think that our documentary was disrespectful to Native Americans because we're giving the giants credit for building them instead of the Native Americans. I'm like, what is this mindset? It's hilarious.
Yeah, or it was built by Native Americans when they had the advanced technology a long time ago, you know, or beings that were more advanced from many thousands of years ago. We're not necessarily saying it was giants, but we're saying there were giants most likely there at some point, because there were skeletons found and stuff like that. But and not just Ethiopia, but all of the mounds all over North America. There's been many giant skeletons found.
I was just thinking of something that I've seen on some show where it was a race of giants, but to interact with mankind, they shrank themselves so that they could walk amongst. And so, as you guys were talking about the giants being there and the Native Americans, I was like, well, how do we know the Native Americans at one time weren't giants?
Yeah.
And as a giant built it and shrank over time, and what we know as Native Americans are not the original Native Americans.
It's possible.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. And the whole Tartaria theory suggests that Native Americans are actually just descendants from Mongolia, and they're originally from that part of the world. And they came here, and they weren't actually native to the Americas. Like, they actually came from somewhere else as well at one point. It's just a theory, right? But there is some evidence that might suggest that, at least in some cases, that might be the case.
Right, because, I mean, I was talking, I don't know if you know of George Mitrovich, but when I was talking with him, he was saying one of the reasons why the Mississippi River is on the back of Phoenician coins is because they had colonized America and were taking the bronze in the Bronze Age out of America back to their homes. And so it's like, yeah, when you think about that, and they're like, that's why you find those tools, is they were like, you know, they went from bronze to the next age. So it's like, well, we don't need this anymore.
Right.
Just leave it, move away. Gets buried through time, and then people discover and go, oh, hey, somebody was here 100 years ago because look at the equipment. And it's like, well, equipment could be thousands of years old, but then we have to admit even the Native Americans weren't the first ones here.
Right.
Not by a long shot. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. There's been Egyptian stuff found in Illinois, and we talk about that in the documentary. And obviously in the Grand Canyon, you know, a lot of us heard about that, and all over North America. So they were, and it all dates back to like 2,000 years plus, you know, ago. Right. So clearly there was, and obviously the Vikings were here, and there were a lot of other civilizations, even the last like 2,000 years, well before that, were advanced, well before, you know, Christopher Columbus and we started coming over here. But the Smithsonian, you know, they created this policy that, nope, that's all BS. And if we find any evidence that supports that narrative, we're going to throw it out and consider it illegitimate because we say so.
Well, not only throw it out, though, but they're going to put it in the basement of their building so nobody else can see it.
They're hiding it. Exactly. They know it's the truth. They know the truth. They just don't want everyone else to know the truth because they got to keep that.
Yeah.
Keep that power structure intact and keep people ignorant. That's how that works. But it's all breaking down. Truth's coming out. They can't stop it. And the awakening is happening. The ascension is happening.
And it amazes me. Yeah, it amazes me because when we sit here and we're thinking, you know, so a culture was here 2,000 years ago. That is super cool. Why is that such a threat to, you know, the history books and to the story? Because what difference does it make when we were first here?
Because that thwarts the theory of evolution and leads us to believe that there could be something more instead of science, you know, and well, their version of science. Because if you know, they want you to believe that we evolved from monkeys and there's nothing else out there, and we're like the rarest thing possible in the entire universe, and there might be life. You know, we understand that. We've all seen Ancient Aliens. We don't need to repeat it, but in my opinion, that's it. And you know, if you can trick people into believing that there is no really real purpose and significance and no afterlife and no reincarnation, you can easily manipulate people with fear because they think this is the only shot that they have, and if they die, that's it. So, that's why that's how they trick you.
Yeah, they don't want you expanding your consciousness or realizing there's way more. There's way more than you're told. So they want you to only believe what you're told, and what you're told is like this little tiny speck of like not only what is out there in the universe or to reality, but what they want you to believe what you are is your body, and that's it. Or they either want you believing that, so that's like the atheist, which is a religion, by the way. Atheism is a religion. That's a whole other topic. They want you in that box, and all you just think the 5 sense reality is all there is. My body is all I am. There was nothing before I was born, and there's nothing when I die. Or they want you in a religion box where you're giving your power away to some external god, where you think you're disconnected from. You think you're disconnected from all that is, and you think you're only living this life for something after the life, and then it's just that forever. And your choices in this finite amount of time determine, which doesn't make any sense. And that's like, how does the soul evolve with it? It doesn't make any sense, or that a loving God would punish someone for all eternity because they didn't believe the right thing or do the right thing. It just doesn't, but what does that do? It keeps people small, keeps people in fear, both atheism and that. Keep people in fear, small, powerless, and subservient to the system, and believing everything they're told by whatever system and within, they give you choices within the matrix, and they don't care which one you choose as long as you're choosing one of them. But the second you step outside and you start thinking for yourself, you start connecting to your inner guidance system and your soul and your intuition and your heart space, and living from that, and not believing everything you're told, not believing in authority just because some perceived authority tells you something that it must be true. Like you start actually becoming a sovereign being. That's when you're a threat, and that's when you start getting attacked or censored or slandered, because they don't want people becoming free sovereign beings. But that's what's happening, because we're in that time on the planet right now where those energies are coming back and the awakening is happening, and they can't stop it. So all they're doing now, they know it's game over. They know it's checkmate. Like, that's happening. All they can do is try to take as many people down with them on their like negative timeline or in the lower realm, however you want to look at it. And I think the jab, I can say the word here, but I'm talking about agenda.
Right.
Part of that, because that's one of the things they're censoring the most heavily. That's one of the things they're pushing the most heavily, if not the most, if not the top of the list. So that's clearly a huge part of that agenda, and what they're desperate to do right now is to take as many people down with them as they can. Even though they can't stop the awakening, they can't stop the ascension. They're just trying to, they're like, well, if we can't burn it all down and we can't stop it, we're going to just take as many people with us as we can and hope we can keep feeding off of them for as long as possible, So that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, and I think evidence of that too was, if you remember, I think it was it 2020, 2021, we got to tear statues down because they represent this or that. And everybody was buying into the narrative, but all the statues they were taking down, half of the statues didn't fit the narrative. And they were like, nope, we still got to take it down. It's like, why? It's like, if you remember, they were like, well, we have to take down Robert E. Lee because he was a Confederate. He was a slave. Then they were taking down abolitionists. And it's like, wait, you do realize an abolitionist fought against slavery. Well, we still got to take it down because it represents this. I was like, no, well, your narrative lost water.
And that was more, those were more trigger events, in my opinion, than, they were symbolic, but they were to enrage the public. They want you
constantly enraged about things that don't matter. Constantly in that state of fight or flight, fear, anger, triggering, the whole woke everything. They want you constantly in that state. You're constantly giving your power away, because you think, I'm gonna go be enraged about this thing and go yell about it and fight this thing, but it's because someone else told you to do it. It's not because you genuinely, authentically came to those conclusions yourself, because the only way you're susceptible to that in the first place is if you're completely, in my opinion, if you're very disconnected from your soul in the first place. And, you know, when they got you there and they keep you in those cycles, they're feeding off your energy. You're being used. The Matrix, come on, the Matrix documentary. The Matrix was a documentary, right? They're using you as a human battery, and they got to keep you in fear, keep you in anger, sadness, depression, guilt, shame, all the low vibrational. It's just all those are just different manifestations of low vibrations and that energy. And you're a battery for the dark forces, basically the lower entities who are really behind the cabal and the Illuminati and the reptilians and all of it. They're the archons, as they've been called, like in the Gnosticism. They're essentially just feeding off of your energy because you're doing it, but you're being played. You don't realize it. So it's about waking up, really. It's about waking up to be like, wait a second, who am I really? Why am I doing these things? Why do I believe these things? Why am I doing something? Why am I doing this just because so-and-so says to do it, or says it's the right thing, or says to be angry about this thing, or hate this thing? It's like, you got to wake up and take your power back, wake up to who you really are. Figure out, like, wait a second, what if there's more than just this 5 sense reality? What if I do have a soul? What if ETs and life other than human beings do exist? And what do they know? Like, what are they saying? Like, because that's another reason they don't want us to know about ETs, because then we're going to want to know wait a second, what are those guys? Why are we listening to the governments and you guys as supposed authorities when these guys are way more advanced and way more evolved, you know, or at least in this lifetime? Let's listen to them. What are they going to say? You know, or they don't want you realizing, because that's way outside the box they want to keep you in. They want to keep you in this tiny little box so that you're giving your power away, because you don't realize that you're an eternal being that has immense power, because you're connected to source, to all that is. You basically are that, just experiencing itself as a soul or as a point of awareness. You know, David Icke gets really into all that, which is why I love David Icke so much, even though I disagree with a few things he says, but he has the overall picture down. I mean, he's got it. So yeah, they don't want you realizing that, and they want to keep manipulating you and feeding off of you constantly. So,
and like you know, in a way you were saying, like when we say, you know, awakened person, we're not talking about woke. We're meaning aware. No. Awakened as in aware. And one of the things I like to do when I'm looking at, you know, what YouTube to watch or, you know, who to look at is who's buying into the narrative, feeding the narrative, and who is going, okay, yes, they want you to look here, but let's look here and see what they don't want you to see.
Right.
And it's like, that's when I'm like, this is someone worth watching, because they're more awake than these people. So what are we being distracted from?
Right. When you get to the place where when you hear something being pushed, whether it's on the media, by governments, by celebrity, whatever, your first thought, your first reaction is, what is the agenda behind this? What are they trying to get me to agree to? What reaction are they trying to get from me? What's the game here? Rather than you just react without those thoughts at all. That's what they want you. They want you in that constant state of reaction without thinking those thoughts at all. They don't want. That's basically you're in this kind of a sleep state, right?
Hey,
where
Aaron.
you're programmed, and then you're reacting from those programs. Programmed, reacting from the program, reacting from. The second you start looking at the programs, you start looking at what's behind this? Wait a second. Why do I get triggered when they say that? Right, like that, you know, where's that coming from? And you look at yourself and you realize, wait, I've been programmed to think these things, to have these emotional triggers and reactions. That's not coming from the real me. That's just a program.
You guys,
and a lot of times it goes back to your upbringing, or what your parents told you, or what school taught you, you know, back to the earliest, you know, when you were a kid. And that's part of the system as well. And a lot of times the parents don't even realize it because they were programmed by someone else and they're just repeating the program. It's not like they were intentionally doing it. They're just, they're victims as well. And it gets passed down until somebody wakes up or says the buck stops here and says, I'm going to start thinking for myself, becoming a sovereign being, and finding out what truth is and who I truly am, and living from that place, not from what someone else wants me to do or live by. Right. So that's what it's all about to me.
You guys mind if I join the conversation?
Yeah. No, it's just us.
It's been like 25 minutes and I've been just sitting there.
Nope, you're out.
No, I'm sorry about that.
No, do you guys have any questions, or what would you like to cover? I mean, we can talk about anything.
Well, one of the more interesting ones of your videos I came across recently was when you went into the underground cities. How did you find the entrance to that, and how did you get access? Because it looked like in the video, like you just went and were like, I'll just look like I belong. But
are you talking about when I actually drove through and filmed it?
Right.
So, Buzzum Quarry is like 5, not even 10 minutes from my house, and there's allegedly an actual underground city there, like one of the elite underground cities, that the alternative 2 cities that we hear about. But my friend's dad, he's worked there his whole life. He's getting ready to retire there. He works at the quarry, and he told me about the underground section you could drive through. And I was like, you can just go. And he's like, yeah. He goes, they don't know. He goes, just act like you know what you're doing. Pull up to the gates. And he goes, if they stop you, just tell them you know me. So I was like, okay. So I just checked it out and, pulled onto the property, and you're going down, and it's this big cave entrance, and you drive through it, and it's just totally surreal. And, that one's not very big. You just drive in one side, and it's like basically a hollowed out mountain, and you drive through the other side, but it goes a number of different directions that you can't publicly access. So that's how I found out about that one. Then there's Rock City in Illinois across the river. They call it Rock City. It's actually the National Personal Archives, Data and Archives Records Center for the whole country. And all of our records are stored there in this underground facility. And it's like millions of acres, and it's like a massive underground network. And it's a cold food storage facility as well. But they have an entrance that you're not only the truck drivers and delivery drivers are supposed to go into. And I've never gone in because I was always like chickened out, and I was with a friend recently, and we just decided, well, what the hell, like, let's just trespass, whatever. Let's just drive in, act like we know what we're doing. So we did, and we drove in, and it was the craziest thing. We were the only people. It was a Saturday in the middle of the day, and we were the only people that we saw for miles driving around inside there. And it was weird. Some areas were very dark energy, like gross energy. Some areas just felt fine. And we eventually turned around because I couldn't tell you how far it actually went. And I don't know, you just kind of start freaking out a little bit. Like, I don't know how, you just turn around. Something in you tells you to turn around. We shouldn't go any further. That's what happened. So I found that just by going on car rides. I like this, one of the things I like to do. I just like to go on drives and drive around and stuff. And I was on this road over in Illinois, and I always drove past the sign that said Rock City, but I never went up there. And I finally made the turn one day and discovered it. And it's a whole cave network, and it's an old salt mine, and I think there's natural caves and man-made. It's mine, but it wasn't until probably 2 years after I found out about that I finally mustered up the courage to actually go in, just drive in, and that's how that happened. So it's pretty wild, though.
And so I'm kind of curious, like you're driving around, do you like have in your mind an intention of, hey, I want to find this or that, or do you just get in the car, drive, and you get a feeling like, hey, I should turn right here. What's over here?
Oh, I just do that. Yeah. Sometimes I'll know the area I want to explore, but other times I'm just, I'll see where it takes me. And that's how I discover a lot of stuff around town. And I'll hear things. People will tell me about stuff, and I'm like, that's in St. Louis. I've lived here my whole life. I never knew about it, and I go check it out. But then you start looking around, and you're just like, what's down this road? It's just kind of just intuition, I guess, and just inquisitiveness.
Yeah. So, have you ever been like exploring and hit a spot, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like government vehicles start showing up, and you're like, I better hightail it out of here?
Not like that, not like the movies, but it did happen one time where there's this portal in Jefferson Barracks. It's an old military base that they turned into a park. It's actually reactive military base now, and they have boot camp there and all kinds of training again, which is interesting that they reactivated it and they're utilizing it again, like they're preparing for something. But I discovered what felt like an energy vortex, and I would meditate. I would go climb on top of this. It was like this little underground bunker thing. It was like a hobbit home, it looked like. And I would go meditate on top of it, not knowing anything back then. And I would feel the energy, and the energy was so powerful. I could hold my hands, and it would, the vortex of the energy, it would actually move my hands without me moving them. Like it was like, woo, woo, woo. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Well, one day I came back, and the gate that had been locked forever was open. So I felt like I'm going to go explore this and see what's in this. And I go to walk in, it's like a dungeon cellar type of thing. It's super dark and cold. And I walk in there, and I see like this. It looked like the whole room was like wavy and ripply, almost like a portal or something. And when I walked in there, I saw a shadow being walk past me, like right out of this room. Like it just passed me. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I walk into the room, and the ripple goes away. And then I back up, and I could see it again. There's like a sweet spot in there. And I'm like, this is some sort of portal. And I found out by talking about it at our conference that somebody knew about it. And she's like, oh, you're talking about the portal in Jefferson Barracks. I'm like, you know about it? Like, I thought this is something. And she's like, yeah, it's the old Native American prison cell. So they were actually locking up Native Americans in this cell. And that's where I was. I was trying to figure out what it was. I'm like, what
no wonder there's a portal there.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, what could they have used this for? So anyway, the time that I had the shadow person leave me, I immediately ran. I was walking the trail, and like somebody who looked like a Fed, like an earpiece and everything. I walked past. He like passed me up, but it was super suspicious, weird energy. Like it's just one of those people that stands out, but we don't think twice about it. And by the time I got back to the other side of the trail, like there was a whole number of things that happened. But when I got back to my car was still locked, but it had been gone through, and my seat was like all the way back and all the way reclined. It, almost like they were wanting me to know that they just wanted me to know that they were watching me, but they didn't take anything or do anything. And it was that night that I had the Black Triangle TR-3B Viper craft fly over my house. So it was a weird thing. Like I discovered this portal on this military base, and like had this shadow being, and like a series of events happened after that. So that's about the only time anything like that's ever happened. Well, not really. There's another time too, but.
Well, what's interesting
is
you talk about walking up to the portal, and it like you couldn't see it or activate it, but then when you backed away, you could see it again. And one of the things that I've always been told about portals is certain energies needed to activate or use the portal. And so, I'm wondering if that's why you, when you walked up, weren't in the right space, maybe, or energy-wise. and the portal was like, hey, wrong energy, shut down. And then when you backed up, it's like, okay, it was like a reset going, okay, next, if the person's ready who's supposed to, we're here.
All I know is any psychic channeler, anybody I've had a session with, like who's tapped into me visiting that area, that they've told me to stop going there. They said it's a negative portal. It is not like it is dark beings using it. But we did go back there and try to cleanse it, clear it, seal it up. We did a whole thing. I don't know if it worked, but we did put our intention into that. I was with a little group of people, so who knows?
Well, and that also brings to light when, we talk about, being protected and, we're kept safe from certain things, that maybe, that's the other reason why the portal didn't work for you, was there was a benevolent energy there that said, nope, close it. He's not going to this dark place. We need him. So you are kept from it.
Maybe. I wasn't trying to go through any portal. I was just exploring, right? And I came to the conclusion, if I hadn't seen that shadow person, like seen something, I would have like, this is a weird place, vortex energy, but like that, I came to the conclusion, like, this is a portal and somebody just walked past me. And it's so crazy because that gate is open now. I still go check it out periodically. And Aaron, you've seen this, like when you've been there, like this cell goes nowhere. Like it's a path that goes into an empty room.
Yeah.
And there is human foot traffic. I mean, it is active, like recent.
Like a well-worn path. We're like,
a well-worn path. So somebody is going in and out, like people, I swear, are using that in the middle of the night or whenever, and you can't be in the park at night. And the one time that I even tried to stay there past dark, the park rangers are there immediately, kicking you out. So, interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting because, one, why would security be so tight on just an empty building? That, I mean, I'd understand if there was like a hole in the floor that went down to a well and you don't want someone falling in it. So, you're going to keep guards on it to keep people safe. But if it's just a room that you walk in and walk out of, there's no real reason to put such heavy security on it.
Well, JB Park in general, we're pretty sure there's a lot going on there that doesn't meet the eye. Let's just say,
right.
We're pretty sure.
I mean, it's a military base.
It's a military, yeah. So,
and there's a crazy history, and potentially was actually part of the Cahokia Mound site. Like I think Cahokia was way bigger than we realized.
Yeah, on the Missouri side, there used to be a bunch of mounds on the Missouri side that were all leveled to build St. Louis. There's only one left, right, on the Missouri side?
Well, one known mound,
sure,
but I have a theory that in JB Cemetery, the crazy large cemetery that has all the World War II veterans and their families, it has a mound. One, like the original part of the cemetery looks like a mound, and there's a statue on top of it.
That's right, yeah.
And Ross Ben, the guy I referenced in the documentary, he talked about in the early mounds what they would do in the cemeteries. They would put a statue at the top of it would be a mound, and they would bury the mounds with burial mounds, and at the top they would put a statue, and that statue was supposed to represent the commander-in-chief of the Army of the Dead, because they believed in the Army of the Dead, that these souls were still fighting the spiritual war after they transitioned. And the statue they chose to put on top of the mound would be the commander-in-chief of that army, which is really interesting, in my opinion. And if you go around to certain mound sites, that's very true all over the country. There's statues on top of them, unless they've been knocked down. But so I have a theory that mound was actually once part of the Cahokia site.
Right. And going back to like Aaron was saying, some of the mounds have been destroyed to build the city. One of the moments that I thought was really like hit my heartstrings was when you went to that spot to where it said this was a mound and the brick walk, and you're like, and this was like so decrepit looking, and you go, and we went back and we cleaned it up, and I was like, that hit my heartstrings that you guys would go back, clean that up.
That was all my dad's idea, by the way. Give him credit. My father, it was his idea to go back, and we tried to recruit a bunch of people to come help us, and it was really weird how
I wasn't in St. Louis at the time, otherwise I would have been there too. It was Tyler.
Right, yeah, Aaron, yeah, he wasn't here, but we recruited. We put out a Facebook message in a small group my dad runs, and we had a handful of people saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's all go this day. And like last minute, everybody had some emergency come up, and nobody could come except for my dad and I. And we're like, we're still going, and we went. So,
and I just thought that was just a beautiful way to respect the land and to tie up your video was, to say, it was like you're saying, all of you who participated here, lived here, even though they've tried to destroy you, we're not going to let you be forgotten. We're going to tell your story.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of was the goal with the documentary. And that's why Clifford Mahooty was added. And we put the highlight reel of him at the end, because even though it didn't all pertain to the documentary, it's still, he's sharing star knowledge, a way of life that's all but forgotten. And I feel like we're just carrying on his legacy and as part of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've reached the hour. Are you guys good to go a little bit longer, or do you have somewhere to be?
We can go a little longer if you want.
Okay. So I'm wondering, and this is something that piqued my interest when talking about like Cahokia, how it lines up with the Orion star constellation. Do you view the fact that so many sites all over the world match up to not only Orion, but other star nations, that there was a culture that was more centrally located that was feeding everybody this information, and that we were kind of like one society in a way versus all these individual societies, and they just happen to build things to match these?
Aaron, you can take that one if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if you want to go back to like Atlantis times and Lemurian times. Yeah, there were it was like you had societies all over the planet, but they're all advanced and they're all able to travel the whole planet. And in my opinion, that's why and the pyramid technology, for example, was a known. They all knew about the pyramid technology, and that's why you see it on every continent. They're on every continent on the planet. But certain continents, they'll be like more like step pyramids, like in Mexico and Central America, and then over in Asia as well. But then in Egypt, you have the more those types of pyramids, and then there's the Bosnian pyramids. They're on every continent. They're in South America. They're now finding them in Antarctica, which clearly was a tropical area at one point before it shifted, when there was clearly like a pole shift, because they're finding all kinds of stuff there that proves that. But yeah, you see the evidence of that just all over the place, that there were advanced civilizations well before we're told that the earliest like real civilization started was like the Sumerians, and Mesopotamia, and like the Sumerians and stuff.
And the Tartaria tablets predate that, and that's
right.
That's even mainstream now, like
that alone
recognized.
Right.
Yeah.
We're told that, right? And that was like, they're like, oh yeah, 7,000 years ago is the earliest. Except then here comes Göbekli Tepe, which dates back to at least 10,000 years, but probably even older than that. But they dated it to 10,000 years ago, which disproves, that's 3,000 years before we're told the very earliest civilization. and that was buried like way underground. They excavated this whole intricate, crazy thing. And there's all kinds of, there's all kinds of stuff in there that clearly there was an advanced civilization that built that, and so that now you're in Atlantis times, and the pyramids and the Sphinx, they're like, Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval and all these, and Jonathan West and all these guys, they got into all how Egypt was way older than we're told and all the proofs of that. But the same can be said for like the mounds, in my opinion, like the Cahokia mounds and the Serpent Mound and all the mounds in North America, and like the Sage Wall in Montana and all these things like in our own country here. That and Chaco Canyon, like they're way, way, way older, thousands and thousands of years old. And they were built by advanced civilizations that, they had contact with people on the other side of the planet because they were advanced. They were more advanced than we are today. And we're supposed to be the peak of civilization. Well, that's a complete lie. Like, we're way behind of where they were 10,000 plus years ago. And then clearly there was some kind of cataclysm that wiped not everything, but wiped out. Civilizations had to go underground. Many probably went off planet. Many died, obviously. But, it's clear that like Egypt, what just pops out of nowhere, was what was like a leftover remnant of Atlantis technology and Atlantis, civilization, which many of that was already there from those times. But then they kind of came back and restarted it,
That reminds me, Aaron, of the Thea Uba prophecy, and which is an amazing book. But they talk about the advanced civilizations being global, the ancient civilizations being advanced and global, and they actually had craft like UFOs, what we would call UFOs. They had craft that they would traverse the planet, and they had foreknowledge of a coming cataclysm. And they left in their craft. So there's no evidence that they were zooming around the planet on the craft, because that's where they went. They literally either went underground or the ones that
inner Earth. When we say underground, we mean like inner Earth.
Inner Earth, or they literally left in their craft or whatever that looked like. But it talks about them having craft, and they had outposts all over the planet, and they were it was the same civilization dispersed. It was a global civilization. That's why all of the structures look the same, but there's subtleties, there's subtle differences, because each one takes on their own. It's just like now, like every country takes on their own ways.
Right. And so, Tyler, I'm curious, I'm going to throw this question to you. In your opinion, talking about like outposts and like we would say bases for cultures is how we're around. Do you think the Nazca lines and those glyphs that could only be seen from above, could that be like remnants of like saying, here's where one of the outposts was? And so it was like border markers, maybe?
Yeah, we actually covered that at the end of our Hollow Earth webinar. And from that book, the Lost City of Manoa, or whatever the book's actually called, that's not technically published, and it's not published in English. But at the end, they talk about the Nazca lines and down there in Peru actually being one of the Atlantean outposts that exist in another dimension. Essentially, it's like still there, meaning like it never went anywhere, but it's out of phase from our reality, right? And the Nazca lines were actually intentionally put as, you could say, border lines, markers, but it's some sort of a boundary, energetic boundary. I don't understand it exactly, but it definitely has something to do with what you just said, like along those lines, some sort of energetic boundary, borders, a marker. But that exact area, I think if you were frequency specific and you knew the right location, you could probably enter that realm and even visit those people. That's what the whole book of Manoa talks about.
Wow, that's really cool. And I wish I could find that book, because that would be an interesting book to read. And
I wish you could too. It's not available in English, or it's only available in Spanish, and I don't even know where to get a copy. I was forwarded a PDF in confidence that I wouldn't share it, and luckily Aaron and I were, blessed to be able to read it. But
unless they decide to ever finally put it out in English, publish it.
Right. There's like some warring between publishers or some disagreement or something. I don't know.
Well, I'll just have to go back and watch the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious both of your guys' opinions because we have, like you were saying, step pyramids. We have smooth pyramids. And we've now found the Egyptian pyramids are 8-sided versus 4-sided.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And all different cultures have different design of the pyramid, but I feel like still are doing the same thing. Do you think the design is just like ancient culture saying, hey, this is Lyrian versus, hey, this could be this star culture versus, this is this ET culture? Or is it basically because Egypt was sand, it's smooth, versus step? Even though there are some step pyramids in Egypt, they're not as frequent.
I mean, I think that you could just compare that to today, and you go to every continent on the planet, and you'll find a house, and you're like, oh well, some sort of bipedal humanoid built this home, and they're the same on every continent, but they all look different. Everybody adds their own flair because based on where they came from and their ancestral lineage and their bloodlines, and they put it's their culture in their structures. And I think that's just what we're looking at with the pyramids. We're talking about some advanced beings, but they all have different bloodlines. Even they might all be a very same race, but they come from different places, just like humans. Like I think it's one and the same.
Yep, right. different star beings, different star races, and that's who seeded Lemuria and Atlantis in the first place. Whereas supposedly, you got like Lyrians and Palladians that seeded here. We like humans didn't just evolve here from nothing. Like that's not. Again, that's the lie they want you to believe. But no, like we were seeded here from elsewhere. So we are ETs ourselves. That's the thing. We don't like you're looking at an ET in the mirror, you want to find one. It's just that we've for the most part lost all this knowledge, and now we're starting to regain it again. And but yeah, that's exactly why. It's just different races with different cultures build things differently.
And one of the questions I have for you guys, and I'm not sure if it can be answered or not, but like when you go to Tulum and a lot of the pyramids in Mexico, they're like, yeah, this is the pyramid of the sun. This is the pyramid of sacrifice. This is the pyramid of... Why do you think we needed to like put out saying, instead of saying here's a pyramid, go, oh well, this is a pyramid of sacrifice. Yeah, this is the pyramid of the sun. How do we know?
They had to give it a narrative. I guess they would know by reading whatever the hieroglyphs or whatever language that they could translate, right? But that's their. I mean, who knows if that's even accurate? The way we're deciphering these hieroglyphs, like is that correct? We don't know. I think also they feel like they need to give this thing a story to fit the narrative, so people don't. Once you provide somebody with an explanation, they try to fit everything into that explanation now instead of thinking outside of that. And that's kind of where we are now, like everything Aaron said earlier.
Yeah, so you think you already have the truth, so it shuts you off from exploring on your own.
Right.
You're given a packaged truth that they hope you just accept, and then you stop looking, right?
And it doesn't mean that maybe the early researchers intentionally maybe they weren't intentionally putting out misinformation,
right.
but based on their level of awareness and understanding, the conclusions that they came to somehow were agreed upon by enough people and became the common narrative that were eventually made it into our textbooks. But that doesn't mean that they were right at all, and it's like all of a sudden you say like, oh, this is a sacrificial mound, and it's like that's their favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
At every ancient site all over the planet, it's why does it always have to be sacrifice? It's just like that's all they know. They have these certain puzzle pieces to work with, so they have to even though they don't really fit, they make them fit, and they're like, yeah, this must have been the sacrificial pyramid, this must have been the ball court, this must have been this, and yeah, okay, that makes sense, but they're not thinking maybe it was something completely different. Maybe this was a machine. Maybe they were using this as a technology. Maybe this was a beautiful place. Maybe they weren't sacrificing people here. Maybe we have no idea what they were doing. And we need to step back and go back to the drawing board and just open our minds and just realize that we just actually don't know. And we need to stop telling people that we do.
I'm curious if you guys had seen the movie John Carter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
great
yeah. That's an old Disney movie, isn't it? Is it not Disney?
That was a remake of the original, though, right? John Carter.
John Carter is where he leaves his body due to a medallion and travels to Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as like you were saying, we find all these bones near this pyramid, and so we're thinking sacrifice. Hey, these people are sacrificed. Maybe it was like, with John Carter, where they sat on this table, they were put a medallion on, shipped it off to another place. Body's no longer needed, so they just discarded it.
Discard piles, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entirely possible. That's exactly it. Like, how do we know? And it's just.
Well, and supposedly there were also what you could call negative ETs or service to self races or regressive races, whatever term you want to use, that were playing God, a long time ago when we were at a dumbed down level, because then, now they can come in, they have all this advanced technology that it looks like magic to a race that is more primitive.
Right. Like the Stargate.
And they can be like, look, we're God, worship us. And, oh, you're going to have to sacrifice, for us to keep, so we'll protect you and we'll give you abundance and blah, blah, blah. So there was definitely a lot of ETs playing God, getting, that power. And
there probably was sacrifice. Well. I'm not saying that there wasn't, but
I'm probably feeding dark entities through the sacrifice, through that, those rituals as well. There was definitely that going on too at a certain point.
I think there was, but I don't think to the magnitude that they try to sell us.
Yeah, it doesn't explain everything.
Here.
Doesn't explain everything, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one of the other things that talking about the sacrifice was, like you mentioned, the ball court, and had some of the tribes if you won, you were sacrificed. So I was like, where is the incentive really to win? Because your instinct to survive would trump your, hey, I'm going to be the victor and I'm going to be this or that. Going, yeah, I win, I die. Where's my incentive to win?
Right.
Well, it's interesting, because they admit that they had some sort of advanced building techniques that we can't explain, even though they try to. Well, no, they don't admit that. They try to explain it away. If we're going super mainstream, they try they rely on us believing that these were very dumb, primitive people, honestly. And that's why something like that would make sense, because we're supposed to believe that they were primitive and they were sacrificing people and they were building all this stuff by, slave labor, not considering that it's a highly advanced civilization that we're doing things.
Free energy is that what they were using, they weren't using gas, coal, and oil and all that, even the electricity that we're using now. Like, they're using way more advanced free energy and 0-point energy stuff that was tapping into the energy that's all around us, to the field, and using scalar and all that. And they don't want us realizing that that stuff exists and has already existed on the planet for thousands of years. And we're now in a dumbed down state. They want us thinking the opposite. Like, oh no, they were just super primitive and we're the pinnacle of civilization. And then they want us moving into their transhumanist AI negative future that they stay in power and blah, blah, blah. Because the only way they can do that is if we keep going on their trajectory, if we don't wake up and realize, like, wait a second, we were way more advanced thousands of years ago. Like, history is nothing like we're told, and we need to get back to that technology, and we need to connect with the beings that are already here, or that already we can connect with, you know, that have that technology or have that, but they're waiting for us to wake up to a certain level that, you know, they can do that safely, and that we can stop giving our power away to these psychopaths that we've been tricked into doing that for thousands of years, you know. But they can't do it overnight, so it's a process, and that's what it's taken a bit, but it's happening, you know.
And another thing too with the ETs is, you know, the benevolent ones is, I was talking on another episode and saying, you know, through predictive programming, we've been programmed to, if a ship was to land in your backyard, your first reaction is to get your gun, get yourself bullets, shoot
Start
first, ask questions later.
Right. Either attack it or run away.
Yeah.
Like,
and so
right.
when people say, you know, the ETs should be coming down to help us, it's like, they really can't, because we've been programmed to kill them. They're not stupid. They're not going to come down and go, oh, you know, I'm glad you missed. Now let me tell you why I'm really here.
Right.
Well,
they're not going to show up if it's going to be detrimental to us in any way. Like, if it's going to have a negative effect on the evolution of humanity, you know, it's not going to. What's the benefit? Why would they do that? Right. So they're contacting people individually, and they can't do it for us, but they can assist us and help us realize that this is actually happening, and they are here to help, and it's not what we've been told. And yeah, but the whole fear thing, you know, we shared a video recently. This mother went to like a parent-teacher conference, and they were implementing protocols for what your child should do during an alien invasion. Like, yeah, and I'm sure, and that's that right there. If you actually step back and look at it, they're telling you that there's no other possibility. There is no possibility that they're here to come in peace. They're only coming to invade. That's
the only thing that they could be doing. So that's what they're doing.
And it's funny, Tyler, that you used the phrase "come in peace," because I said on an episode we were talking about it, going, yeah, it used to mean we're benevolent, we're here to help. Now we've been programmed to, when they say we come in peace, okay, they're invading. Get your guns, get your pitchforks, get whatever you can. We got to fight these people.
I mean, they're already here. I don't believe half of the videos I see online anyway, but the amount of UFO videos, if even a small percentage of them are real, that we see every day now, from mass sightings to one I saw today where a number of people were filming this craft over an airport that was, it felt real. I was like, this is a real sight. This is a real UFO. This is a real sight, and it's happened. That's the way I felt about it.
Yeah.
But it's happening everywhere. Like, it is, they are here, they're showing up, and I think the government and all this mainstream UFO disclosure narrative bullshit, they're just trying to get ahead of something that they can't control. They don't have control of it, so they're trying to get ahead of it and give us whatever little bit of information that they can give us without telling on themselves, without telling everyone that they've been lying to us forever and they've been killing people to keep this a secret. So they have to tiptoe around and do it in this stupid, lame way that really just pisses people off, and whatever. They're just playing the game, but they know they have to play that game because the ETs are showing up.
They've always been here, though. It's not like they left.
They're making themselves visible.
They're showing themselves more.
Yeah,
for the first time in a long, long time. And unfortunately, there were, you hear about the reptilians and the Greys and these negative races that unfortunately have been behind the scenes for a long, long time, working with the negative group that's been controlling the planet, as they're using them as their puppets, but they've been behind the scenes the whole time controlling them and doing their whole power game. And that's finally being exposed so that we can wake up and stop consenting to that, and because we're the ones feeding it, but they have to keep us asleep to keep feeding it. So we wake up, it's game over. And we have to raise our consciousness to a certain level. A certain number of us have to raise our consciousness to a certain level. For the more that happens, the more that the benevolent ones can show up and start like walking among us and living among us. Because like you can make contact one-on-one yourself right now. But for one, if it's your mission to come here and do stuff here, that can actually be a distraction and end up being a negative thing. If you're like, oh, I want them to take me on their ship and take me away, it's like, well, no, because you made an agreement to come here to help on boots on the ground. So you need to be here and doing things like the show you're doing, and waking people up. And two, the benevolent races respect free will. Like free will and freedom is like the highest thing, because without that you have nothing, right? Well, the negative ones, they just violate free will always. That's what they do, and that's what's been happening. And it's gone so far out of balance that like humanity, we needed some ET intervention and some divine intervention to help level the playing field so that we can even wake up and take our power back. So that's what's happening now. But like right now you can do a C5, or you can connect to your guides or your star family by meditating and just with your own consciousness. And a lot of times you do that and you'll see the ship show up, or you'll, in your dreams, they like to do that in your dreams a lot, because it's a lot less traumatic and a lot easier for them to contact you through the astral or through your dreams and things like that. So a lot of times it'll start out that way before you get any kind of physical, but it's possible to have physical contact right now, but they're going to do it more just on an individual level, because we still have this whole system still in place. It's going away, but it's still there, that like, they don't want the military being all, activated to start attacking or start martial law or like some kind of chaos. If they just show up en masse and like land, they're going to be like, oh, there's an alien invasion. We all need to, give up all your freedoms now. And we need to create the new world order. That's what they want. Right. So it's almost like they're trying to trigger that. But the benevolent ETs, they're way smarter. They know all their plans and their agendas. They're not gonna fall for that. But the deep state or the cabal, they are falling for traps, in my opinion, set for them. That's exposing and waking people up so that we stop. We're like, wait a second, what's going on here? Oh, I see these agendas playing out. Okay, now we're gonna take our power back.
They are falling for the traps, because when you're operating in that frequency, you don't have the ability, you don't have the intuition to see the trap and to detect the deception. They're so one-track minded, they're so delusional, living in their own delusion, that they just walk right into it. I mean, it's hilarious. Yeah.
Right. And they're like, we've been doing this for years. They don't know about it. There's no way they can trap us because we're smarter than they are. And it's like, yeah, their ego is. Yeah.
Well, they've had so little resistance for so long that now that like there's an awakening happening, now that the benevolent races are stepping in, and like there's all this happening that they've never had to deal with for thousands of years at least. They don't know what to do, so they're just flailing. And it's like never, what's the saying, like never interfere with an enemy when they're destroying themselves. Well, that's what they're doing. They don't know what to do, so they're exposing themselves left and right, and they're waking up people left and right. And in my opinion, that's the most important thing, is the awakening, because all we need to do is wake up to the power we already have, and wake up to the reality that's already here. It's already here. We just have to wake up to it. And once we do, it's game over. And once we hit a certain threshold, it's game over, and then we can start connecting on a more mass level with these beings that we're seeing all over our sky. Like the UFO sightings are off the charts right now. It's like they're just, that alone is getting people to realize, wait a second, there's other beings here. You know, they're flying around in the sky, like they're here. You know.
And I think another reason why the benevolents aren't just coming in too is, like we're saying, you know, the cabal and the deep state and all of them are in essence almost being cornered. And what's the one thing we know? Never underestimate a caged or cornered animal. And so if these people who have been running free are now cornered, we don't know what they're capable of. And so I think that's another reason why the benevolents are staying in the background somewhat more, is because if they are going to do a massive, say, attack, then if they're all on the front and the attack is coming from behind, they can't help. Whereas if they're in the back, they can foresee what's coming and going, hey, wait a minute, now is the point. They're totally caged. They're cornered. Here's their grandiose. Now we're going to put an end to it, and we'll be done.
Well, you got to understand, their control system doesn't stop on this planet. It goes out into the galaxy, right? So I'm sure they had to like close off portals and stargates, so they couldn't just like, oh, we take them out here, and then just backup comes and replaces them or something. You know, it's like they had to deal with all this other stuff first, and then they're like, all right, now we can start. Now we got to contain to this planet, and now we can clean up. You know, here I'm sure it's a process. It's not going to happen in 2 seconds. You know,
I do think that you have a point though. Like, you never underestimate somebody who's backed into a corner,
right?
And I think that there's no telling what they're going to try in the coming years, days, months, whatever. And, you know,
false flags.
We know they're coming, and we know there's going to be casualties, and there's, you know, things aren't going to be all benevolent like we want. Not yet. Like, that's very clear right now. There's a period, and we have to make it through these times. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's the reason why we have these conversations, to help people understand that no, they actually don't have control. This isn't the end of the world. It's the end of their world. But and this is what it looks like. And at the end of every civilization all throughout history, at least documented history, there's always war. There's always war, and the machine consumes itself. And, you know, there's always a cataclysm, a catalyst, you know, for change, and then there's some sort of a reset. And I think that we're on the precipice of that right now. And except this time, I think that reset is something that is going to benefit us.
Yeah, there's always hope.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we've actually gone to an hour and a half. So
awesome.
Thank you guys for coming on. It's been a true joy and pleasure.
This has been great. Thank you so much.
Amazing. It's been a blast, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm curious, on my other shows, I like to ask a question of, and I'm curious how both of you will answer, is what is one golden nugget that you would love to leave with people, that whether they're watching this now or, as we were saying, you know, months, weeks, years down the road, what is one golden nugget that you would love for them to hear?
The earth isn't flat.
Yep.
I agree.
That's it.
This is real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, but what I always say is, don't get caught up in all the distractions, and don't forget to have fun and find some joy in life, and, you know, do what you love to do, you know, and just remember to enjoy yourself and be happy, and don't take things so seriously.
Yeah, realize that death is an illusion, which means that you're so much bigger than your body and your one experience here in this one lifetime. Like, your soul is eternal, and it can't be destroyed, and it's had who knows how many lifetimes before this, and it'll continue in other dimensions, and, you know, things you can't even fathom from this point in a 3D reality. That this is just that that's the real you, and you're just having this experience right now for your soul's expansion. Ultimately, that's what this is all about, and for the expansion of Source itself. And it's essentially akin to like a play, you could think of, or a video game, or however you want to look at it, or a movie or whatever. But it's like one that you get to be actively a part of, rather than just watching. You know, you're an active participant in creation itself. And death is an illusion. There's nothing. Fear is an illusion. Therefore, there's nothing to fear, because what is there to fear if you're an infinite, eternal being? You know, like. So there is nothing to fear. You know, anything that's perceived negative, there's always a purpose to that, and there's always lessons and things that you can gain from that. So everything's a blessing in disguise, even when it doesn't appear to be. So yeah, just realize that, and man, it makes it way easier to not take everything so seriously, like Tyler said, to live in joy, and to handle the rough times way easier, and, you know, be able to live in that space of love, that love frequency, because love doesn't have agendas. Love doesn't hate. Love doesn't have fear, right? Those are all illusions. Like when you're in the love frequency, that's it right there. You know, you're one with everything. So get to that space and live from that place as much as you can, as often as you can. And the more you do, the more you'll naturally just be at this higher vibration.
Awesome. And so I want to give you guys a moment to plug your upcoming conference, because you had mentioned it in the beginning, but yeah, I think it's important to share out. So
this is our third annual conference in Grafton, Illinois, May 13th through the 16th. We're really excited. We're calling it Rebels of Disclosure, and we have a great lineup this year, including many people that I'm sure you guys all know: Tony Redriggs, Jackie Kenner, Sherry Divban, Jerry Wills, Margie K, a whole number of people. It's a great lineup. Niara Isley this year. We're really excited about that. But if you're interested in joining us, there's still tickets available, but I would grab one because they are going. So Rebels,
grab it soon. They're not going to last forever.
rebelsofdisclosure.com. It has all the information that you want. And if you can't make it in person, you can grab a live stream pass and you can join us virtually. And there are day passes as well. So if you don't want to come for the whole event, you can just come for a single day or two, or whatever days you would like to join us. And, you know, if it doesn't sell out, and you can come and buy a ticket at the door, especially for a day pass, that would work out better than a 4-pass, obviously. But
if it doesn't sell out, because
anyway, yeah. So either way, we're really excited, and we encourage everyone to come. It's a beautiful venue. It's right on the river. You can just sit there and, you know, drink your tea or coffee, where there's drinks available all day long, and you know, you can just hang out and chat with people, and there's bonfires at night, and it's just such a beautiful venue. It doesn't even matter if there's presenters. Honestly, you just come and hang out. You don't even have to come and sit down for the presentations. It's just about, it's like a vacation. You would want to spend 4 days here, even if there wasn't any event.
Right.
It's a beautiful place.
So a question I'm sure people are going to be asking, and I'll give you guys a chance to voice here. When you say virtual pass, is that a virtual, you'll get to see all the speakers, and above that is, do you get recordings after the show of those speakers?
Yeah. So first of all, every 4-day pass, if you buy a 4-day pass and come, it comes with a live stream pass. So if you can't make it to one of the presentations, you'll have the link and you can watch it on your phone, and you'll get a 6-month recording after it. The replay is available for 6 months.
6 months after. Yeah.
So if you get the virtual pass, you don't have to watch it live. You can just catch the replay and you have 6 months to watch it before the link expires, and then we'll eventually upload them next year sometime on our channel.
After that, on our platform anyway, later on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know in the beginning you said that you guys are Rumble based. Is that the best place to find you?
Yes.
That and our brand new website, journey to truth.online, which encompasses everything we have to offer. So everything that we do, all of our affiliates, our Patreon, Rumble, all the platforms, everything, journey to truth.online has everything you would ever want to know about us and everything that we're up to. And we have an email list we encourage you to sign up for, because we're doing monthly newsletters now, and just updates. So if you want to stay up to date with everything we're doing, sign up for the email list, because that's a really cool feature that we're going to start having a lot of fun with. So,
right. Did I get the address right?
You did.
Yep.
Sweet. Because I wasn't sure if that was on the list of links that I found for you, so I wanted to make sure I got that out there for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, it's a new website, so it's just
we finally have a updated website with everything just right there that's updated, because the website for a long time was just frozen in time, like 4 years ago.
It served its purpose early on, but we hired somebody to do it, and we didn't have access to update it ourselves without going through him, and it was very difficult. So we have full control over this one now.
It's a lot better now.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad things are looking up for you guys, and you have all this. I still don't know how you do it, but thank you for doing it. Thank you for sharing your journey to truth. I love the name of that podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, so we're gonna sign out because I'm sure everyone's got things to go to do and everything. So we're gonna say good night, good day, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Make it a great one. And I am going to take a key from these two, and I'm actually going to leave you guys before I go to the outro with the nugget that I got from the movie Dune. If you remember that sci-fi movie, fear is the mind killer.
Yes.
Remember that. That line is one of the only lines of that movie that resonate and I can recall on hand. So remember,
fear is the mind killer.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So, all right, everyone, have a great one, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.